on artificial intelligence, less than 2 weeks ago, just before Budget 2024, the announcement by DPM Lawrence Wong, our finance minister, there was another announcement halfway across the world from Singapore. A tech company which is already changing the world, a tech company called OpenAI, which brought you ChatGPT not too long ago. That company announced a new platform, a new AI platform called Sora. Sora allows you to key in text, type in some text, a prompt, and it can produce videos which are indistinguishable from what Hollywood can produce today and what smaller studios can produce. Just 1 year ago, during the debate on the President's address in April 2023, I'd spoken in Parliament about the age of AI and how fast things were changing, how software like ChatGPT, GPT-4, Midjourney 5 had appeared on the market within less than a year or so. AI which can hold a conversation with you, can write an essay for you, that's ChatGPT. AI which can take high school exams, advanced placement exams in the United States curriculum and outperform many humans, that's GPT-4. AI which can create photorealistic pictures of events that never happened, that's Midjourney 5. Just 1 year ago, I had spoken about how, with increases in computing power, once you go from generating one make-believe image to 30 images a second, you go from AI-generated photos to AI-generated videos. At the time, April 2023, I'd expected the technology to take another 2 to 3 years. As it happened, it took place faster than I imagined. Within 10 months, OpenAI had announced the Sora platform to produce AI-generated video. So that's the world today. Technology disruption happening very quickly. New challenges everywhere. The unexpected, increasingly the norm. And so we can't hide from these changes. No country, no economy can hide from these changes in the world with AI. Even if an entire country tries to prevent AI from entering its borders, other economies will do so. Your competitors will do so. So we have to accept the world as it is, the way the world is going to be, and look after, support, empower, uplift our people. And this is why the new subsidy for Singaporeans aged 40 and above to pursue another full-time diploma in higher education. This new subsidy in the budget, that's why it's so important. Because it recognizes that in a world that's changing so quickly, what you learn in school, in education at age 20, may have changed, transformed, been replaced by a new world by the time you're age 40. It recognizes that change and supports middle-aged and older workers. And having mid-career workers learning new skills alongside younger workers, a middle-aged, mid-career worker alongside someone who's 18, 19, 20 plus years old, learning together, that will also transform the education experience in our institutes of higher learning. Because older workers bring life experience, life skills, living wisdom into the classroom. Even as they bring that into the classroom, they also learn new skills together with the younger students. And these students, by working with each other, they even lift up one another. It will transform the classroom, even as it allows the older and younger workers to form new friendships, new networks, and new opportunities together.
Hey guys, welcome back in. That monologue you just heard was from Tan Wu Meng. He's a parliamentarian in and for Singapore. It's one of the more encouraging things I've heard from any state official globally on AI. And while there are, a host of problems governments deal with daily, the fundamental changes that are headed our way due to AI, they're not slowing down. The news that we'll discuss this week confirms that. But this type of discourse from Tan Wu Ming is what I would like to see happen in the Western world. But our political parties seem to be more concerned with beating the other team than dealing with something, as abstract as AI. But it does appear as if Singapore is looking at actionable ways for dealing with the AI wave that's coming. We know that AI will fundamentally transform education and work, so why not try to prepare for that? And his proposal is that, Singapore will provide some sort of subsidy, some sort of funding for people to retrain mid-career, because those people, I myself am probably one of them, will have to pivot into something they never expected to pivot into. So let's get out ahead of this thing. Now, there are some cynics I've already seen in response to this proposal in Singapore saying that, why waste your time? AI is eventually going to do everything. So, let's bury our heads in the sand seems to be the cynic view of this. But I think you need to do something. And this, again, seems like a practical step in preparing for AI. Yeah, eventually AI will do all these jobs. But that will be many years down the road. So let's do something to prepare folks for the in-between when mass transitions will have to take place. Ming also mentioned Sora, which is a text-to-video technology released over the past few weeks by OpenAI. Remember, we talked about OpenAI as a company that delivers. It's difficult to believe that they'll be able to keep the pace up. This is just an aside, but the rate at which they're delivering new products to the market is pretty wild. This release of Sora, which is text-to-video, has been limited to AI researchers and others in the field to test the technology. But the capabilities that have been released so far by these people testing it have been remarkable. Now, before I go further, I try to remind myself of what I think the audience for this show looks like. I imagine it to be folks like myself, not in tech. My hope is that the people who listen to this show are largely, parents trying to navigate these monumental changes coming from AI and AI-driven social media. So I have to remind myself to explain things like text-to-video in a way that it makes sense. I mentioned text-to-video to someone in conversation a few weeks ago, and it was apparent that not everyone lives in this tech ecosystem that I follow. And that's okay. You shouldn't. But in order for this show to be useful, it needs to make sense for listeners. And I've also received some feedback from folks who have shared the same sentiment. So I'll try not to make assumptions when discussing things like this. So having said that, text-to-video, like OpenAI's Sora is the name for this particular product, simply means you can go to a website, OpenAI's website, and type in anything you want to see in a video. And when you hit enter, a video populates seemingly out of thin air for that very thing you typed in. So much like going to Google search bar, if I wanted to create a video of gladiators fighting in the Colosseum in Rome in the first century, I would type that very thing into the prompt or the field. And Sora and technologies like it create videos for that purpose, or from those prompts, I should say. So if you've seen earlier text-to-video models, you'll realize just how sophisticated the technology is becoming and what are the ramifications for such a technology. So we talked previously early on in this podcast about text-to-video, and that's been over a year now, or close to a year now that we talked about that. But the idea that I could sit at my house at my computer and create a full-length movie, 90 minutes, through something like Sora, texting the plot of what I want, and you can refine it as much as you want, and the video will update to match what you prompt. So if I wanted, a movie with Denzel Washington, I think we're going to get to a world where I can license or pay a fee to use Denzel's likeness for my personal movie project that I can create at home. So, it's pretty wild to think about, all the things that go into making a movie have been ultimately distilled down to Sora, what we're seeing from OpenAI and other AI companies are producing similar things is pretty wild. And so that leads us to our first headline of the week. From the Hollywood Reporter, quote, after seeing OpenAI Sora, Tyler Perry, producer, filmmaker, studio owner, states jobs are going to be lost, end quote. So Tyler Perry did a Q&A with the Hollywood Reporter on AI, and I'm going to hit just a few of those. So the first question is, after seeing Sora, what are your current feelings about how fast AI technology is moving, and how might it affect entertainment in the near term? His response is, I've been watching AI very closely and watching the advancement very closely. I was in the middle of and have been planning for the last 4 years about an $800 million expansion at the studio, which would have increased the backlot a tremendous size. We were adding 12 more sound stages. All of that is currently and indefinitely on hold because of Sora and what I'm seeing. The interviewer follows up with what in particular was shocking to you about Sora's capabilities. His response was, I no longer would have to travel to locations. If I wanted to be in the snow in Colorado, it's text. If I want to write a scene on the moon, it's text. And this AI can generate it out of nothing. And if I want to have two people in the living room in the mountains, I don't have to build a set in the mountains. I don't have to put a set on my lot. I can sit in an office and do this with my computer, which is shocking to me. He goes on to say, it makes me worry so much about all the people in the business because as I was looking at it, I immediately started thinking of everyone in the industry who would be affected by this, including actors and grip and electric and transportation, sound and editors. And looking at this, I'm thinking this will touch every corner of our industry. And let's see, there's another one here. How would you like the entertainment industry as a whole to confront this rapidly developing technology? And his response was, I absolutely think that it has to be an all hands on deck, whole industry approach. It can't be one union fighting every contract every 2 or 3 years. I think it has to be everybody all involved in how do we protect the future of our industry because it's changing rapidly. I think of all the construction workers and contractors who are not going to be employed because I'm not doing this next phase of the studio because there's no need to do it. I'll link to that article. He goes on to answer several more questions, but his major concern is, this is going to transform the entertainment industry like it will everything else. And as the technology gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, it will force the hand of major studios. They're not going to pay 300 people on the set of a show for Netflix when they could have 3 or 4 people working on it on technologies like Sora. And so most people don't have any, concern for folks in Hollywood. That seems so distant to most of us in middle America. But these are folks with jobs, obviously. Most people working in entertainment don't make a great deal of money. So it will certainly affect people. And again, this is just one facet of our lives and culture that AI is going to transform. So again, I would read the article. Tyler Perry, it seems, has a handle on the situation, and he knows, I guess, by using it, how transformational it is. Our second headline comes from Fortune, quote, Sam Altman's $7 trillion AI chip dream has him rounding on critics, end quote. So there was a story floating around a few weeks ago that Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was trying to generate funding in the amount of $7 trillion to transform the AI chip industry. AI runs on these specialized chips, and for OpenAI to be completely dominant in AI, I think they would need to dominate that field as well. So the chips where they currently rely on outside suppliers to supply those chips, this is something they would have to get into. Sam Altman has since come out and said he's not trying to generate funding in the amount of $7 trillion. He was simply saying that $7 trillion would be the amount it would take to transform that industry. So I don't know. I mean, I've not been surprised by OpenAI and the things they're going after at this point. So for them to try to take on chips might not be that far-fetched. Our next article is from Bloomberg, quote, UPS CEO kicks off productivity drive by cutting 12,000 managers. So UPS reported disappointing earnings, or earnings less than they expected. And as a result, in order to save money for their shareholders, they decided to cut 12,000 jobs out of 85,000 management jobs. So these were probably middle management jobs. And they're going to do some other things in the business to save money. But this is a quote from the CEO. She said, "We are going to fit our organization to our strategy and align our resources against what's wildly important." She said that even after shipping volumes grow, those jobs will not come back. It's a change in the way we work, end quote. And she hinted at more changes to come. But the article says the job cuts, the largest in UPS's history, were made possible by new technologies, including AI. Citing one example, she said that machine learning allows salespeople to put together proposals without having to get pricing information from executives. We've talked about it previously that, these tools are out there already, these AI tools. They exist. And if shareholder value has to be created at the expense of personnel, then those companies are obviously going to implement that technology and cut labor, because labor obviously is the biggest cost. So our next article is from CNBC, quote, Google CEO tells employees Gemini AI blunder is unacceptable, end quote. So one of the larger stories over the past few weeks in AI was Google's release of an image generator, so text to image. You might remember that Google, their AI models were called Bard at one point, and they were not bad, but they were less than, I guess, satisfactory for someone or a company as prestigious as Google. And Google really, it's kind of a mystery within AI circles that I follow that they are performing as poorly as they are, but they are inexplicably. So Google revamped or rebranded from Bard to Gemini, and a few weeks ago they released this text-to-image generator, and it was, for lack of a better term, woke. If you wanted to, generate an image of the U.S. founding fathers, it would give you all non-white. It would give you all non-white people in the photo that it generated, and there's countless examples out there. But it seemed to be heavily biased. So one of the main concerns with AI is bias. We've talked about this previously. The people working at these AI labs, these AI companies, are innately biased. We all are in some way. So how do you stamp that out or rid that out? Google was obviously unable to do so, as their product was laughably woke at the expense of particular races. So they released this product, and it didn't help Google's AI credibility in any way. It did the opposite, and they were already struggling. And again, like I said, a company like Google probably shouldn't be struggling in this field. So the CEO of Google said, I know that some of its responses have offended our users and shown bias. To be clear, that's completely unacceptable, and we got it wrong. No AI is perfect, especially at this emerging stage of the industry's development, but we know how high the bar is for us at Google, end quote. So they're aware of it. I imagine they'll fix it in the short term, and it will not be a problem. So our next headline is from CNBC, quote, Elon Musk sues OpenAI and CEO Sam Altman over contract breach, end quote. So Elon is suing OpenAI, which is backed ultimately by Microsoft, saying that the company abandoned its founding mission to develop AI for the benefit of humanity, broadly speaking. So I don't know. Is this Elon's true aim? It may or may not be, or this may be more calculated because he does have, of course, his own AI product and his own AI ambitions. So perhaps this is not as noble as it is coming across. I don't know. But I do know that Elon plays chess when most are playing checkers. I mean, that seems to be his way of doing business. So, but here he is, explaining his position, and it does make sense. It seems like a valid point, but listen to this from Elon.
Look, it does seem weird that something can be a non-profit open source and somehow transform itself into a for-profit closed source. I mean, this would be like let's say you funded an organization to save the Amazon rainforest, and instead they became a lumber company and chopped down the forest and sold it for money. And you'd be therefore like, well, wait a second, that's the exact opposite of what I gave the money for.
Yeah.
Is that legal? That doesn't seem legal. And if it is, and in general, if it is legal to start a company as a nonprofit and then take the IP and transfer it to a for-profit that then makes tons of money, shouldn't everyone start? Shouldn't that be the default?
Right.
So to be fair to Elon, he did put over $40 million into OpenAI from 2016 to 2020 on the assumption that they would operate for humanity's benefit. And I think if we've seen what we've seen over the last year, OpenAI doesn't seem to be pursuing, humanity's best interest. They seem to be going all gas, no brakes. And as recently as within the last month, we've listened to an interview with Sam Altman that says, we can't stop now. We've got to push through and see what happens. So that's sort of his mentality, which is frightening, to me at least. And who knows what's going to happen. These are the two probably biggest tech leaders at the moment going at it in court. All I know is OpenAI's legal counsel is at full capacity. They have to be because they have lawsuits coming at them from all angles. So it'll be interesting to see how they survive this lawsuit and the many others they have in front of them. Lastly, this week, I wanted to highlight an article from The New Yorker, which is a profile on the CEO of Nvidia, and his name is Jensen Huang. He's been in the news a lot lately as their stock price keeps surging and surging with the AI gold rush that's happening, and they are a monster company. So just to give you some perspective on how big they are, I'm going to read the first paragraph from this article just to give you some background. Quote, the revelation that ChatGPT, the astonishing AI chatbot, had been trained on a Nvidia supercomputer spurred one of the largest single-day gains in stock market history. When the NASDAQ opened on May 25th, 2023, Nvidia's value increased by about $200 billion. A few months earlier, Jensen Huang, Nvidia CEO, had informed investors that Nvidia had sold similar supercomputers to 50 of America's 100 largest companies. By the close of trading, Nvidia was the sixth most valuable corporation on Earth, worth more than Walmart and ExxonMobil combined. Huang's business position can be compared to that of Samuel Brannan, the celebrated vendor of prospecting supplies in San Francisco in the late 1840s. Quote, there was a war going on out there in AI, and Nvidia is the only arms dealer, end quote, from one Wall Street analyst. So for further context on just how big Nvidia is now worth the same as the whole Chinese stock market. The whole Chinese stock market. The company's market cap is at $1.7 trillion, the same as all Chinese companies listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So that should give you some perspective as to how big Nvidia is. So Nvidia is the sole supplier of these supercomputers that companies like OpenAI and Midjourney, Anthropic use for their large language models. And they're really the only game in town. And so part of what Sam Altman was talking about for the $7 trillion needed to transform the AI ecosystem was that you would have to get into the chip game and the supercomputer game that NVIDIA has in order to take over, essentially. So that would require, according to Sam Altman, a $7 trillion investment. So again, this article is really just a profile on Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. And I should also note that NVIDIA isn't sticking strictly to building these supercomputers. They are in the business of creating their own large language models. So they are diversifying. And there's just one quote from this article that I want to read that talks about the NVIDIA complex they're building. Quote, even before the run-up in the stock price, employee surveys ranked NVIDIA as one of America's best places to work. Each building has a bar at the top with regular happy hours, and workers are encouraged to treat their offices as flexible spaces in which to eat, code, and socialize. Nevertheless, the building's interiors are immaculate. NVIDIA tracks employees throughout the day with video cameras and AI. If an employee eats a meal at a conference table, the AI can dispatch a janitor within an hour to clean up. Huang told the writer of the article to expect a world in which robots would fade into the background like household appliances. Quote, in the future, everything that moves will be autonomous, he said, end quote. So it's a long article, but it's a good profile of Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, which is one of the biggest companies in the world right now due to AI, and they're only going to get bigger. So that's it for this week. I know previously we had talked about, our last episode was on social media and just how detrimental social media is and is becoming, how AIs can take your likeness and put you in compromising photos, and videos are coming soon. But there are tools which parents can utilize right now to help scrub the internet from photos of your child. So next time we're going to talk about those tools and how you can use them to help protect you and your children. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.